Well, in case you haven't heard, Hillary Clinton has a new book and is making the rounds promoting her story. Now come the reviews and those thoughts of how what has been revealed here will hurt or hinder if she does indeed decide to make the run at Pennsylvania Avenue. The human crisis swells unabated in the American Southwest. How long will it take for any serious action to be taken to stem what is basically an illegal immigrant tide? And while there are plenty of indicators the economy is so much better and the stock market is back in heady times, what does it really all mean for you, the American consumer? It's time to question everything for June 10th, 2014. Midpoint continues. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner, and thanks so much for joining us. We will dig into these issues and a whole lot more right after John Bachman sets us up with Newsmax Now.
And thank you, Ed. Following up on that story near Portland, Oregon, police say the scene of that school shooting has been stabilized right now. They believe the shooter has been killed. It's not clear at this point if there were any additional injuries beyond that. But again, police say they have stabilized the situation. Students are starting to be reunited with their parents who had gathered there, fearing the worst. We'll continue to follow that story and bring you more updates as soon as we have it. Now, overseas, more violence is erupting throughout Pakistan today as Taliban officials declare full-out war. Pakistani television stations earlier today were showing images of security forces taking up positions near the Karachi airport after attacks were carried out there for the second time in 3 days. The second wave of fighting comes after gunmen laid siege to the main airport in Karachi that left 36 people dead. The onslaught of attacks is in retaliation, so say Taliban officials, for a U.S. drone strike, which once upon a time killed a top Taliban commander. And Las Vegas police now say that couple that are blamed for killing those two police officers and another person at a Walmart store before they committed suicide had a long history of expressing those anti-government views. The evidence found at the crime scene also seems to support that.
The suspects pulled the officers out of the booth and onto the ground, where they placed a Gadsden flag, which is a "Don't Tread on Me" yellow flag, on the body of Officer Beck. They also threw a swastika on top of his body.
Now, according to police, the officers were eating lunch Sunday at a pizza buffet when the Millers shot them. The couple then, of course, went on to that Walmart and killed a third person there who was a customer in the store. Before police engaged them, they apparently ended that standoff with a suicide pact. Now, earlier this year, that same husband and wife were kicked off of Clive Bundy's ranch, where government protesters, you'll remember, faced off against federal agents over cattle grazing rights. That's according to the Associated Press. Now, the son of Clive and Bundy said the couple were, quote, very radical and didn't align with themselves with the protests' main issues, and that's why they were asked to leave. Now, Donald Sterling, the Clippers owner, says the deal to sell the team is off and a lawsuit is on. The Clippers owner is withdrawing his support for sale of the team. He now plans to go ahead with a $1 billion lawsuit against the NBA. Sterling has seemingly changed his mind multiple times about what he wants to see happen with the team. Back in late May, former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer laid down a $2 billion offer to buy the team. Now it appears Sterling wants to fight to keep his team.
I've been involved with this organization volunteering. Last summer I helped out a lot. It was all adults, so seeing many children, babies, some who had been held in immigration holding facilities without adequate food, vomiting, sickness. You know, this is really a new spike and a new, humanitarian need we're faced with.
From a possible new resident of the White House to unwelcome residents in the southwestern United States. Let us now dig further into these two issues from both sides of the debate. Welcome here in studio. We welcome back political analyst Mariana Mancuso from politicalhype.com. Welcome back again. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure also. And via Skype, senior political strategist at the Chadderdon Group in Washington, D.C., former public opinion research consultant for the National Democratic Institute, Joe Lestingi joins us today. Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to join you today.
All right, Joe, let's go ahead. First of all, I'm going to give ladies first. Let's go ahead and discuss what's happening in the American Southwest here. Children, not adults. We're talking about children pouring into the United States now, desperate to find a place to feed them, to clothe them, to house them. There are people screaming that the borders are being overrun. Laws are being broken. Mariana, you get first shot on what exactly is happening here and how you feel that this is being handled.
Well, I think that it's actually not being handled. You know, the Obama administration has just completely opened our borders. They've turned the Border Patrol into the welcome wagon, and they're not doing anything to crack down and keep this from happening that's infiltrating our United States. It's just another example of his lax feelings on Social Security and national security at home.
Joe, go ahead, your turn.
Well, I think we can all agree that this is a very tragic situation. These children, often unaccompanied, are coming across the border, being pushed from areas with high drug trafficking or cartels. And once they get here, we do unfortunately have to deal with them. And here's the big point. The president has really actually secured our borders more than any prior president. He has more deportations, especially around the border areas, than any other administration prior to him. And dealing with these children is a new, I mean, this spike is very new. We went from 6,000 a few years ago to almost 90,000 of these children coming through. What this really points a finger to is what has been debated for years, which is our horrible, broken immigration system that Congress fails to address.
Okay, hang on a sec, Joe, because I'm going to interject here because you talk about the spike of this right now and the numbers that are happening here, and you said that the president has actually secured our borders more than anyone else before him. Can you really say that with the amount of people, the human bodies that are pouring across the border right now, that they're secure?
Well, if you recall, when we've had these debates in the past, everyone agreed. The first thing we do when we talk about immigration reform is secure the borders.
But he hasn't secured the borders, Joe. That's the issue.
Exactly that. We are catching more illegal immigrants at the border than we have in the past, and we are sending them back. Unfortunately, there is a small process that they have to go through, but they are going back. This is very different from the Bush administration that did catch and release.
Okay, but wait a minute. Hang on one sec. Hang on one sec. Mariana had something in here, Joe. Hang on one sec. Mariana, go ahead.
Sure. Absolutely not, Joe. The thing is that Obama is using younger lawyers to go and form AmeriCorps and to go and actually fight for these children to come over. And he's opened the borders, and we have them coming over in droves, and now we don't know what to do with them, and he's just turned it into a huge welcome party, and that's absolutely inappropriate. And the thing is he's using an election year to do this because he's tying the hands of the Republican Party. They can't do anything. He's putting the pressure on the Republicans that are running for re-election, such as the majority leader Eric Cantor, as well as other people that are running under the Republican ticket. They can't do anything right now, and he knows that.
No, that's not true. They have a bill in front of them that they have refused to bring to the floor that deals with immigration reform, and they just don't want to deal with it in an election year because Hispanics are a very big voting bloc in these southern states where there are a lot of Republicans. But I'll say this, I mean, to assume that a 14-year-old or a 12-year-old that's coming from a poor area is watching and following our immigration policy, I think is a big stretch. These are children. Let's be very clear. They're children. And
he's setting a precedent for those children, Joe, and you can't deny that.
How anyone can be against their safety and their well-being. I mean, this is a humanitarian issue that we do have to deal with.
But isn't that something in itself? Here we have parents who are sending children who are unprotected. They're giving them over to coyotes who, quite frankly, are not exactly the kind of people you would want to deal with if you're an adult in the first place. They're throwing them over the border. This seems to a lot of people to be nothing more than just set the anchor, put the kids in there, get them in here, we'll follow. Now, I'm telling you, that's what a lot of people think, Joe. And again, when you come down to talking about borders, too, when we talk about the fact of border security, I mean, were we not prepared for this? If these borders were so secure in the first place, why were we not prepared and completely caught off guard by this massive amount of humanity coming across the border?
Well, I would argue that obviously we're never going to be able to secure this border 100%. It is a very large border and very remote. And it is very sad what is happening with these kids. If nothing else, we have to recognize the fact that these kids are put in very dangerous situations. But once they cross that border, we as human beings owe them some sort of care. We can't just put a 12-year-old, could you imagine putting a 12-year-old little girl back into the desert and saying, fend for yourself?
Oh, come on, Joe, nobody's going to put them back in the desert. Come on, wait a minute, Joe, hang on, I'm going to have to stop you there. Nobody's going to just throw them back into the desert, you know that.
Sure. But then we're going to put them in prison with convicted felons? No, we have to deal with these individuals and these children in a legal manner, by the way. I mean, they do deserve representation.
The situation, Joe, is that you're failing to realize that when one child gets over here, then there's about 10 to 1,000 more that are going to follow suit. They get to tell their families back home, hey, I made it and you can too. And our Border Patrol hasn't done anything except for let them waltz into the country, and that's absolutely inappropriate. And your government and our government, the president, has just let this happen continually, and you can't deny that fact.
when we catch them, they're already over the border. So,
so then that's okay. Let's just let them stay. And then it's supposed to be our problem? Absolutely not. But in an election year, as you pointed out, the Republicans have their hands tied. They have a commitment to serving their constituents as well as running for re-election to keep America and get America back on track.
They do. They have a very important commitment to their constituents, and part of that commitment is real immigration reform, something that both parties have debated and wanted and pushed for a very long time. And the Senate has passed a bill. We're waiting on the House to bring it up, but Boehner even said so himself. Not going to happen. So if anything, I mean, the president
it has nothing to do with the House waiting to vote on a bill, Joe. It's the fact that we haven't had Congress' ability to agree on anything. We haven't been able to pass anything effectively. The only thing that we've agreed on recently is the lack of communication between the White House and Congress during the Bergdahl release.
I think you're right. I mean, I think we can all agree the most dysfunctional organization in this country right now is the United States Congress.
Okay, I like that. I like that. On the first issue, we got an all agree. That to me is perfect. So let's take it from there. I'm going to switch gears now, and we're going to go to the new book by Hillary Clinton. Let me get Joe. I'm going to give you the first shot at this right now because this comes out as strategy right now. So as somebody who deals in strategy, who looks at this, you've had a chance to see what's in the book, to hear a little bit about it. Is it good strategy? Is it going to be something that she will indeed use in order to vault herself into a possible presidential bid in a good sense?
Well, I will say this. First off, I actually have not read the book. It just came out today. But
well, we've seen pieces of it, though. What I'm saying is we've all seen pieces of it and heard little things that are coming out of it. You're correct.
And I can't wait for the next 72 hours when everyone has crunched on the book and come out with it. But I'll say this. I think I'm one of the camp that don't actually think she's going to run. But if I was on her strategy team, which unfortunately I'm not, I would say this is good. This is going to put her in front of millions of people. She's going to do a good book tour on this. She's going to tell her story. And the best part about this book is a lot of people look at it as very matter of fact. It's very open. It's meant to be a dialogue with the United States and with the voters. And I think in that sense, it is a very good push or segue into a run if she so chooses.
Mariana, have you had a chance to read pieces of it, or at least hear pieces of what the book entails?
I've read a few excerpts from the book that have been passed around, and again, this is a litmus test for her and what she's going to do in 2016. Absolutely. She wants to see what the overall consensus is. If a lot of people are going to go out and buy her book, and then when they show up to her book tours at the bookstore, they're going to want to know what the demographic is. I mean, this is a goldmine of information on the voters without them even realizing it, and they're voluntarily giving it.
I do need to point this out, too, and I'm looking at what's coming across the wire right now. The book has been on sale. Today is the first day it's been on sale. They're already showing pictures of a Books A Million that has it at 40% off. And there are people already there. Well, they're talking right here about people at Books A Million that say they've never heard of a book like this being 40% off on its first day.
Yeah. I'll be very clear. I think print books in general, I haven't walked into a Barnes & Noble lately and not seen a book marked down, even on its release day. But I can assure you the pre-sales for this were very big, and it's going to be a newsmaker over the next 72 hours for sure.
Do you think it will help? I mean, here's the question now, because if you talk to some of the people who only seen excerpts, but one review I saw from the New York Times was not very kind, and a number of the viewers were not very kind. They said, really, we really didn't learn much more about Hillary here. So I'm going to ask you both here from a strategy standpoint. 1 minute to go. First of all, Joe, strategically, have we heard enough of the book, and do you think there's enough in here to change people's minds and get her to vote for her or against her?
I think this is going to do a great job of consolidating her forces that she needs to run and to make that decision. I don't know if this is going to be a big persuasion book. I don't think that works. But the people who are in the Hillary camp that may have been on the fence, they'll be happy to jump back in and support her all the way through to Iowa.
What do you think, Mariana?
You know, I think this is just an unofficial straw poll to see what's going to happen and if the public is going to welcome her with open arms and if she wants to take that risk in 2016 to run for president, because in 2008 she lost. So we're really going to want to see what happens with the people and how the sales go and if she can pull out a victory for her end before she goes and runs.
I'm going to put everybody on the record here right now because I love to do that. First of all, Mariana, do you or do you not believe that she will run as we sit here right now, going to run?
She will, yes.
Absolutely. Joe, I think we already got your answer. You say that you don't believe she's going to run, correct?
You know what? 6 months ago was very solidly in the she's not going to run camp. I'm wavering, but I'm still in the she's not going to run camp.
Okay. Well, we got it down on tape now, or whatever we record with these days here in the 21st century. So trust me, we'll come back and do it all again. Joe Lestingi, thank you so much for joining us. Joe, we'll absolutely do this again. Mariana Mancuso, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have you back again as well.
Pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Now we need to know exactly what America feels here, because we give you a chance on social media here at Newsmax to let us know how you feel. And of course, we talk about it. So make sure that you send us a tweet. Make sure you get get on Facebook. There's Twitter. There's the email. There's the Facebook. Let us know. Will this book change your mind either way? We're back with more on Midpoint, where every day we question everything.